Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here then just welcome, and I'm super happy to have you here. I'm currently working on a mesh sweater, which is something that I wanted to create already for super long and finally found some time. And while I'm getting close to being done with this project, I thought that it would actually be nice to record something and share with you, and also kind of like document step by step of the whole process. And I hope that you will find it useful. So I have already created a couple of panels for this top that I'm working on. So this is panel for one of the arms, and then I have also created one panel which would be for body parts, either front or back. So this is what I'm working on, and this is what I wanted to share with you, so we can kind of work together, and I can also give you some inspiration on how to create this type of top. So because of the structure of this top, this is not going to be your usual tutorial that you could see on my page, just because in terms of pattern, this top can be customized, and you can basically just come up with whatever stitch you wish and do stitches in whatever way you want, as long as you feel like they go together very well, or the final look and color combination is looking nice. So in that sense, this is going to be more like a free-handed tutorial to also give you some kind of like inspiration to just kind of go crazy with stitches that you're using for this top. But anyway, I will try to explain you as much as I can in as much detail as it's necessary and makes sense, to also give you some more insights of like how I started the process and what should be done, what are the materials, and so on. So in terms of materials, I will be using mostly cotton yarn. So here I have I think it's 11 different colors in total, different kind of shades of pink, as well as light beige and white. So these will be the main colors and materials that I'm using. So this is 4-ply cotton, and besides cotton, I also have these two rolls of Mohair blend, and this is slightly totally different material, but it gives a very nice look and kind of like a fluffy touch, which is very nice for this type of sweater that I'm working on. And in terms of what kind of yarn it is, I'm basically using this 10-pack from Hobby. So just in case if you're wondering, this is the yarn that I'm using, and also this is Kid Silk Mohair blend from Hobby. And besides yarn, you will also need other materials such as crochet hook, of course. I will be using 3.5mm hook, and you will also need some scissors. But otherwise, in terms of materials, you're more than welcome to use whatever yarn type you wish, as long as it's not like super bulky and super thick. As well as the same applies for the crochet hook, especially if you want to give it more like a loose look or loose feeling, then you are more than welcome to go even a couple of sizes up for your crochet hook. And so here is one of the panels. So this is front or back panel basically, and you can see that I have done every single row in different color, as well as I have used different type of stitch. These are not like fancy stitches at all. I'm just using very basic crochet stitches, so starting from single crochet up to double, treble crochet stitches to kind of make them longer, so you can see these posts a little bit more pronounced. But this is basically how you have to work on creating these panels. And in terms of figuring size, in which size you should be creating these panels, basically for the starting point, you would just have to do some chains. So at the starting point, you would have to do like an even number of chains and then +3. So for example, for front panel, I just made sure to do chains so they are wide as my shoulders. Or if you want to have kind of like an oversized look, you're more than welcome to create this panel even wider. So basically just do chains in an even number and then add +3 extra chains at the end, and just make sure that if this is for the front or back panel, just make sure that it's in the length from one shoulder to another, or add some more if you want to have an oversized look. And then similar thing also applies for arm panels. So in that sense, you would still have to do an even number of chains plus 3, but in this case you will be aiming for something that is going around your arm, and then the same applies. You can just choose if you want to have more like a tighter look or more something that is loose. But otherwise, the important thing to note is that these chains have to be able to go around your arm full circle, because later on you would of course have to be connecting these panels together. And then if I'm just touch basing on the exact pattern for these panels that I have already created, so the aim is basically to make sure that pattern of each panel that you are working on is kind of the same, especially for front and back panels, and then also for each arm to be the same. So that is the only thing that you kind of have to note. So when you're working on the very first panel, you can basically just go fully free-handed and just add stitches and rows in whatever way you wish. But what I did for my own sake was that I used my notebook, and I was just making sure that I'm writing down every single row that I'm doing to also memorize what kind of stitch it was, just in case if I'm later on not able to recognize them. So here I just wrote all the rows and stitches that I used for each of them, so that is kind of helping me to memorize what I should be using later on when I'm working on the second panel for either body or for the arm panels. But otherwise it was totally fully free-handed, and I also encourage you to do the same, because in the beginning I tried to kind of like plan how this pattern is going to look, but I just realized it makes more sense if I actually just write it down once I have already created it, instead of going back and then adjusting, you know. So in that sense, this is a super fun project, and I hope that you will enjoy it as well. But anyway, while there isn't a specific one source of truth pattern, and you would rather like to create something that is exactly the same as mine, I have also prepared a written version of this project that I have created, and it's linked down below and available for purchase on my Etsy store. And of course, your support will be super appreciated. But now what we could do is actually that we could create some rows together, so I can kind of like give you a hang of this project, and from then on you will be able to mix and match different types of stitches, colors, and so on. So basically, let's just start together, and then from then on, I'm sure that you will be able to move further and create these panels on your own. So now let's get started. So in this example, I will be working on creating the second arm panel. So basically, I will be following this pattern to duplicate the one that I have here already made. So to get started, I have already prepared some chains here, and for the arm panel, for my size, in total I have created 74 plus 3 chains. However, if you're not sure about how many chains you have to create for your own size, you can just do these chains and then measure it around your arm in the widest point to make sure that it actually fits around it. Or if you're working on the body panel, then the same thing applies. You just have to measure it from shoulder to shoulder. But now to get started on the first row, first we have to skip the last 3 chains. So 1, 2 and 3, and then in this fourth one, this is where we are going to place the first stitch. And for this first row, for my project, I will just be doing double crochets, so yarning over, going through this chain, grabbing yarn, pulling up to have 3 loops, yarning over and pulling through 2, yarning over and pulling through 2. So that's 1 double crochet. And for this first row, as a base, I will just be placing 1 double crochet stitch inside every single chain that I have here until I reach the very beginning or the very last chain that I have here. So that's what I'm doing for this very first row of this second arm panel. So here I have gone until the very end and done stitches inside every single chain. And as you know, we are switching color after every single row. So to do a color switch, I have actually here in the very last stitch, I haven't completed it completely. So for this double crochet, I still have this last yarn over left. And this is where we are changing color for this type of stitch. So for the next row, I will be using this pink color, and to attach it, I'm basically just grabbing this yarn and tying it around the color that I was just using like this in a secure knot, and then I'm just pulling it closer, basically next to the hook like this, and just making sure that this knot is secure. And then I'm just finishing off this last stitch by using the new color, so yarning over and completing that double crochet. So here we have totally completed this first row, as well as we have changed color, and now we can actually take our scissors and also cut off this old yarn or old color that we had before, because we won't use it, at least not right now. And then we can start working on the second row. And if I just have a quick look at the panel that I have prepared, so you can see that for the second row I will basically be doing double crochets, and after each of them I will be chaining one and skipping one to kind of make these gaps in here. So let's get started with the second row. So to get started, we first have to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and this chain of 3 is going to count as one double crochet. And then we can also turn our work, and to kind of add an extra gap, because this chain of 3 counts as double crochet already, we just have to add another chain. So basically 4 chains, which is double crochet plus chain of 1. And then we can proceed further with stitches. So because this counts as a stitch, we are not counting or taking into consideration this first stitch, then the second one is being skipped, and then in this third one, this is where we are going to add one double crochet. So I'm just starting with that and doing a double crochet in here like this. So here technically we have 2 stitches and chain 1 space in between them, and then we are just proceeding with the next one. So first we are chaining 1 and then doing double crochet. Of course we are also skipping 1 in the middle like this. So chaining 1, skipping 1, and then doing double crochet in the next stitch like this. So this is how it looks, and this is basically the process that you have to keep on repeating throughout this row until you reach the very end. And here second row is completed, and I have already switched color, and for the third row I will be using this Mohair blend, so we are kind of switching materials here. And just to show you how the third row is going to look, so for that I will be doing treble crochets inside every single stitch, as well as inside every single gap that we have here. And to get started, first we just have to chain 4, so 1, 2, 3 and 4, and this chain of 4 is going to count as one treble crochet, so it's kind of our first stitch, and therefore we are skipping kind of this first stitch space that we have. And then starting from the next one here in the gap, we are starting to add in treble crochets. So this is the first one, and just to do one together, we first have to yarn over twice, then we are going inside this stitch here, grabbing yarn, pulling it up to have 4 loops on our hook, and then yarning over and pulling through 2, yarning over and pulling through 2, yarning over and pulling through the remaining 2 like this. So basically 3 times we are pulling through 2, but let's do another one together. So yarning over twice, going through this space, grabbing yarn, pulling up to have 4 loops, yarning over, pulling through 2, pulling through 2 and pulling through 2 like this. So that is treble crochet, and we are just adding those inside every single stitch, as well as every single gap that we have from the previous row, until we reach the very end. And so here the third row is finalized, and this is how it looks. And I have also changed color to this light pink. And for the following row, which is the fourth one, I will be adding these stitches of half double crochet inside every single stitch that we have from the previous row. So let's get started on that. So first we just have to chain 2, 1 and 2, and then we can turn our work, and this chain of 2 is going to count as one half double crochet. So therefore we are also skipping the first place and then going in the next one. And for half double crochet you just have to yarn over, go through the stitch, grab yarn, pull it up to have 3 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through all 3 of them like that. So this is one half double crochet, and then we are just repeating this process by adding one half double crochet stitch inside every single space that we have here. So here I have already added a couple of them, and this is how it looks. So now I'm just going through this entire row and adding one on top of each stitch that I have here. And so here also the fourth row is finalized, and this is how it looks. So now here at the end I'm again just switching color, and because it's half double crochet we basically just have one yarn over, and therefore I have all 3 loops on my hook, as well as I have here attached the new color. So now I'm just completing this half double crochet with the new color that I have here, like this. So now it's officially done, and we can proceed further with the 5th row. So for the 5th row we will actually be creating this super tall lacy stitch, which is basically, I can kind of say that this is treble crochet, because it has 4 yarn overs in total in the very beginning, and therefore it's also creating this wider or longer look. And then in between each of these stitches we are again chaining one and skipping one. So let's just do this one together as well. So first, to get started, I will be chaining 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then turning my work, and this chain of 6 counts as one treble crochet as well as chain 1 space, and because of that we are skipping the first one as well as the next one, and then in this third chain space we are adding one treble crochet, and for that we just have to yarn over 4 times. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, like this. Then we are going through this stitch, and then we are grabbing yarn and pulling it up to have 6 loops on our hook, and then we are just yarning over and pulling through pairs of 2, yarning over again and pulling through the next 2, and so forth until we have completed it for all pairs of 2, like this. So this is how it looks, and then again we are just chaining 1 and skipping 1, starting with yarning over 4 times. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then skipping this one, going in the next one, grabbing yarn, pulling it up to have 6 loops on our hook in total, then yarning over and pulling through 2. So this is first time, then doing that for the second time, third, fourth and 5th. So in total we are just doing that for 5 times, and then again just repeating the process in the same way. So just keep on adding these treble crochet stitches inside every second stitch, and remember to chain 1 and skip 1 in between each of them. And this is how it looks once I have added few of these stitches, and as you can see it gives a super nice and cute lacy effect. And this is how it looks once this row is completed. So now in total we have done 5 rows, and I'm sure that now, and here I have completed this row, and this is how it looks. And now we have 5 rows in total, so I'm sure that at this point you understand the drill, and you can basically just keep on mixing different colors, different types of stitches, as well as different materials. And let's just have a look again at the panel that I have completed. So here you can have quite a lot of inspiration on what type of color mix to use, as well as types of stitches. So here, as you can see, you basically just have to keep on adding extra rows until you have reached the desired length for this panel, either if you're working on arm panel or one of the body panels. So here's my progress so far for this second arm panel. So now at this stage I will just keep on adding extra rows. I will mix and match different colors, different stitch types, also different materials, and basically I will just build the length until I have reached the desired length that fits me the best for my arm panel. And then in total you just have to create 2 panels for arms, 1 for each, and then also 2 panels for body parts, so 1 for the front and 1 for the back. And for the body panel the same process applies. You just have to add length until you reach the desired length that you have to have for your size, but otherwise just keep on working on these panels, and then once I have all 4 of them ready, that is where I'm going to meet you back again. So now I have prepared all 4 panels. I have 2 for the sleeves and 2 for the body parts, so 1 for the front and 1 for the back. And now we can actually proceed further with connecting these panels together. To make it easier to understand what is the panel distribution and what goes where and what needs to be connected, I like to lay out all of these panels on the floor to make me understand that better. So here I'm just showing you the distribution of all panels and also what would be the connection parts between each of them. Here you can see the connection parts between front and back panels in the shoulder parts, so you would just have to make sure that you are connecting equal amount of stitches on both sides, as well as making sure to leave enough space for your neck. And then I would proceed further with connecting arm panels to the sides of the front and back panels. And in that case, you just have to make sure that you are connecting them exactly in the middle. And I would advise to leave in some stitch markers to mark where is the start, finish, or middle point between these connection points, which would help quite a lot once you are actually connecting these panels together. And so here I have connected already front and back panels as well as arm panels on the sides. So now that this is done, we can proceed further with connecting the rest. So for that, you basically just have to fold or flip your work and just make sure that you are folding it with the inside out, so the pretty stitches are in the inside. And then we can proceed further with connecting the bottom parts of the arm panels as well as sides of the front and back panels, and that of course would have to be done on both sides. And for actually connecting panels together, you can choose whatever method you prefer, but I like to do slip stitches, so this is what I'm going to show you in this video. So here, when connecting shoulder parts, I'm just making sure that I'm placing these panels together stitch to stitch, and then our first step is to attach yarn. And in terms of yarn, I'm just choosing something that is blending in with the latest color that I used from both panels. So first, let's start by attaching yarn. So here I will be starting from this side, and I'm just going through this last stitch here, and then also the same stitch on the other panel, like this. And then we can grab our yarn and pull it through and attach it in a secure knot here to make sure that nothing is going to unravel, like that. And then we are just going through this space again and grabbing yarn and just pulling up a loop, and then we can just chain one to get started, like this. And then after that we can begin with our slip stitches, and we will basically be doing slip stitches until we reach this end point where we have stitch markers in both panels. But to begin, you basically just have to go through the stitch on one panel and then through the same stitch also on the other panel, like that. Then just grab yarn and pull it through, and also pull it through the loop that you had on your hook, like that. So this is one slip stitch, and then we are just repeating the same process for all of the following stitches that we have. So going through the stitch on one panel, same stitch on the other panel, grabbing yarn and pulling it through, and pulling it through the loop on your hook, like this. So here I have already done a couple of these slip stitches, and I'm just proceeding to do that until I reach these stitch markers here. And here I have reached the stitch markers, so now I just have to perform the last slip stitch by going inside these stitches like this, and then we can actually fasten off. So for that, again, we are just chaining one like that, making this loop a little bit longer, then grabbing our scissors and cutting off yarn, and as it's cut off, we can just tighten it in a secure knot by pulling this loose end. So now this shoulder part is connected, and this is how it's looking on this side. And then if I turn it on the right side, you can see that connection between both panels is super smooth. And then once that's done, just do the same thing also on the other side. And then basically the same process also applies when connecting arm panels to the body panels, but the difference here is that you would be connecting stitches to rows. So in this case, you just have to be a little bit more like strategic about your stitch distribution. So it's very useful to keep some stitch markers to keep track of how many
many stitches you are connecting to each row on each of these sides. Otherwise the process is the same. And so here I have connected half of this panel and I have reached the middle point between front and back panels, and this is how it looks. And basically I tried to spread out these stitches as evenly as I can. I started from this row with purple color, so on the other side I'm also reaching up to the same row with my connection points. And if I turn it on the other side, you can see that connection between panels like this is also quite smooth. But otherwise just continue with also connecting other side here, and then do the same thing with the other panel for the other sleeve. And then for the bottom part of the arm panel as well as sides of the front and back panels, it's very similar, or basically even easier, because you're basically connecting row to row, and since each row is in a different stitch and in a different color, it's kind of easier to keep track of what needs to be connected and where. And also because every single row is in a different color, I would advise to pick a yarn for connecting these parts in quite neutral color so it doesn't stand out too much. And if I turn it on the right side, you can see that also this type of connection is very smooth. And then once all panels are connected, our very last step is to weave in all of these loose ends. And for that, again, I'm using my crochet hook, but if you wish, you can also use a darning needle. And to weave them in, I basically just go through the stitches in the back and then just grab these loose ends and weave them inside the stitches in the back side so they are not visible and not hanging. So basically just do that with all the loose ends that you have until they are hidden, and then you are done with your project. And here I have connected all of the panels together and my top is ready, and this is how it looks. I'm super happy with how it turned out. I absolutely love this project. I had so much fun making it, and it was never boring because every single row was completely different. I also managed to use up quite a lot of yarn that would eventually have ended perhaps in my scrap yarn box. So definitely a good project for that. If you have like bits and pieces of different colors and different material types, then this is the perfect project for you. But yeah, it was super easy to make. It didn't take a lot of my time. The panels and stitches work up quite quickly depending on what type of stitch you are using, and also this is a perfect project if you want to have a little bit of a freestyle and just freehand it with all sorts of stitches that you want. But however, as I mentioned, if you want to follow a specific pattern and to use exactly the same type of stitches that I did, then I have also prepared a written version of this project, and it's linked down below, and of course your support will be super appreciated. But otherwise, if you have any questions or need some extra help, then just feel free to reach out below. But if you did enjoy this video, then please give me a big thumbs up, and if you're new here, then please subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye!